Well, in another news now, Nigeria's housing deficit remains a major challenge, largely due to limited access to affordable mortgage finance. In response, the federal government has expanded interventions in affordable housing and mortgage financing, leading to increased sector activity. One of the recent key initiatives include the Renewed Hope Affordable Housing Program, with targets of about 1,000 housing units in 8 major cities and 100 units in each of the 774 local government areas nationwide. And I'm joining me now from our Lagos studio to provide more insight into Nigeria's naughty housing finances issues is Ayodele Olowookere, the president of the Mortgage Banking Association of Nigeria. Thank you, sir, for joining us. It's good to have you on the show. Maybe we should start this way. Nigeria, as you're aware. Yes, thank you. Nigeria, as you're aware, faces an estimated housing deficit running into millions of units. Despite multiple policies and institutions, this problem seems to, persist. But from your perspective now, what do you think is the real problem behind our housing finance gap, and why has it remained unsolved or resolved for so long?
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me this evening. Like you mentioned, we have a deficit running into millions, depending on who you're talking to. Some will tell you we have over 20 million housing deficit. Understandably so, we are 250 million people. The problem we've had over time is we had a lot of macro problems stemming from inflation and interest rates, so it made it even very difficult on the formal mortgage side to underwrite a lot of mortgage. The second issue we have primarily has to do with the fact that we have over 70% of the population locked in the informal sector. So this makes it very difficult to actually reach them. On the informal sector side, we have not developed mortgage or housing finance models for the informal sector. A lot of it has to be affordable housing finance models. Then thirdly, we have a lot of fundamental policy issues and regulatory issues around long-standing the NHF Act of 1992, the Land Use Act, the titling issues, perfection issue, foreclosures issues. Then lastly, we have leadership issues around collaboration. We have fragmented mandates along what government does, making it difficult for collaboration among government agencies. Instead of collaborating, we see a lot of competition that has not helped the market to close this gap. Like I mentioned earlier, we have 20 million housing deficit. So if we say over the next 20 years, we want to close this gap, assuming it is not a rolling gap, increasing every year, that means we need to be doing 500,000 housing units every year. At 30 million or 20 million naira per housing unit, that's over 10 trillion naira you're talking about every year. Considering we have a budget of around 55-60 trillion for 2025-2026, that is huge. The kind of focus we need to give to this problem that we have at hand. Thank you.
I'm glad you mentioned that, of course, we will have to perhaps provide about 500,000 housing units annually to be able to maybe scratch the surface of this challenge. And currently, we understand that one of the ways the current government is addressing this challenge is this, through the Renew Hope Affordable Housing Program, which you talked about. I mean, and like I read out in the intro, that they are providing 1,000 units in each of these 774 local government. If you compare that to the figure you just mentioned, that's 500,000. It is minimal, but of course we have to start somewhere, right? But how confident are you that this program can genuinely address housing supply shortages and affordability for ordinary Nigerians?
I think the pilot scheme of the Renewed Hope housing schemes started 1,000 housing units minimum in the big cities, and then maybe 100 to 200 in some selected zones all across all the states in the country. The first phase is supposed to deliver from 10,000 to 15,000 as in units, Charles, over 2-3 years. And since the inception of this government, I think we're just closing out on the first phase of that to deliver about 15,000 housing units. So compare that to what we have as a gap of 500,000, which is a modest assumption or estimate of 500,000 on an annual basis. We still have a long way to go. So, of course, it's good that government is taking these steps, spotlighting it, especially from the supply side. Maybe this will also help a lot of people on the supply side to see opportunities to come in. Over-dependence of government has also slowed us down a lot because if Renewed Hope is doing 15,000, and we need 500,000 a year, that is less than, we're talking of 2-3%. So, yeah, good steps in the right direction, but there's a need to actually fundamentally tap into what the private sector can do or push on the private sector side to cover the remaining 90%, definitely. But it's a good step, but a lot more to do, Charles.
You mean to say Frank? I mean, my first name is Frank.
Frank, sorry, please.
Yeah, okay, that's all right. That's all right. But let's talk about the MOFI. That's the Minister of Finance Incorporated Real Estate Investment Fund scheme. The scheme was introduced to lower borrowing costs and extend repayment period in a market where commercial mortgage rate perhaps are above 20%. But the key concern really is whether these terms align with the prevailing income levels and employment stability, especially with the challenges we've highlighted earlier. But with the 9.75% up to 20 years tenure, do you believe this is affordable enough to bring the average Nigerian into the mortgage market?
Yeah, very affordable enough on the former side. It has spotlighted the mortgage industry as a subsector. It has brought a lot of interest. I would say from 2021 to 2024, for my own mortgage bank, Imperial Homes Mortgage Bank, the number of mortgages we did in 2025 alone was as much as what we did over the last 4 or 5 years, previous 4 or 5 years, added up together. So that shows that the interest rate is a very good thing. For example, it has reduced by over 70% what we used to have as monthly repayment. So I'll give an example. Someone that is doing a 20 million naira house, a 10% equity contribution, that is 2 million, very affordable, unlike the equity contribution obstacle we used to have before of up to 30%. So 2 million, that means you're borrowing 18 million. Your monthly repayment is a bit around 150,000. So for someone doing 10 million, your monthly repayment is around 60,000 naira. So that was a very good sweetener for subscribers who are interested in using mortgage, and also opens a lot of frontiers for mortgage banks. A lot of enlightenment around that program has also helped. Like I said, it's a fantastic program. It's a reset for the mortgage banking sector. It's the kind of leadership role we wanted the government to do, and they've been able to do that through the MOFI and the MREF scheme. That is at 9.75 over 20 years. And it's a very flexible scheme, so kudos to the government for doing that. But I would like to point out that this 250 billion naira, 20, 30 million or even 10, 15 million per house is barely 40,000 mortgages you'll be able to underwrite under this first scheme. I know the government is trying to put in up to 1 or 2 trillion naira, but everything is still less than 50,000 housing scheme, housing mortgages that will be delivered. So it points to the need to collaborate properly and looking at the financing for private money to come into the mortgage banking sector in a way that is organized and at a scale that can help, attack this problem we have at hand.
Mr. Olowookere, you have 30 seconds to answer this question. Talk about the long-term reforms that would need to address this sustainably. And 30 seconds.
Okay, number one has to do with foreclosure. It helps lowers lenders' risk. I've pointed to the need to have a lot of private capital come into the sector. Looking at government is doing its leadership, but they can't take more than 10% of what the problem we have at hand. So foreclosure, we need a reform around that. There's need to be a bill to address this. Let's have a mortgage tribunal and make foreclosure to be done under 12, 18 months. We have election tribunals that make sure that electoral issues are done within 6 to 9 months. Something as compelling as a problem of 20 million housing unit shortage can also be so dealt with. Secondly, we need also reforms and policy rejig around the NHF Act. Needed to be the Federal Mortgage Bank need to be recapitalized, and also we also need the Land Use Act to be relooked at. Then thirdly, titling has to be digitalized. The state government needs to work hand in hand with practitioners like the primary mortgage banks and all stakeholders in the sector and the federal government to look at the issue of perfection and titling. There needs to be a look at the whole process, make it easier and make it cheaper for people to come and formalize their title. There's a lot of value to unlock in that.
Okay, I think a good place to leave it. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Ayodele Olowookere. Thank you for your time on Arise Exchange.